Grace stood in the center of the grand ballroom, her ivory gown catching the light as New York's most powerful families watched in stunned silence. The lonely Mafia boss who had once terrified her now knelt before her, slipping a ring on her finger while his 5-year-old daughter, their daughter now, cheered from the front row. "I never believed in fairy tales," Grace whispered. "But then again, I never believed a little girl's hug could change my entire life." 6 months ago, Grace was just a waitress trying to survive. Tonight, she was becoming the wife of Lorenzo Castellano, the most feared man in New York, and the mother his daughter had chosen with her heart. This is the story of how one unexpected moment transformed 3 broken hearts into a family that even the darkness couldn't destroy. ACT 1. The Invisible Woman, 0:30 to 3 o'clock. Grace Martinez had been invisible for so long, she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen. At 24, she moved through the world like a ghost, serving tables at Bella Vista, taking orders with a smile that never reached her eyes, going home to an apartment so small she could touch both walls with her arms outstretched. Her life was carefully constructed for one purpose: survival. Every morning, Grace woke at 5 a.m. in her studio apartment in Queens. She'd put on her black uniform, pull her auburn hair into a practical ponytail, skip breakfast because groceries were expensive, and take the subway into Manhattan, where people like her served people who never looked twice at their faces. Grace had worked at Bella Vista for 3 years, ever since her grandmother, the only person who'd ever truly loved her, passed away, leaving her completely alone in a city of 8 million people. Table 6 needs water. Marco, the owner, would bark. "Move faster, Grace. We're not paying you to daydream." Grace would nod, smile, move faster. Always more invisible. She'd grown up in foster care after her parents died when she was 8. She learned quickly that quiet children who didn't make trouble, who didn't ask for attention, who made themselves as small as possible, those were the children who survived. Her grandmother had fought to take custody, giving Grace 6 precious years of unconditional love. "Bella," Nona would say in her thick Italian accent, "you have so much light inside you. Don't let this world make you hide it." But after Nona died, Grace's light had dimmed to almost nothing. She dropped out of college, taken this job, and settled into a lonely existence where each day blurred into the next. At night, Grace would curl up in Nona's old chair and wonder if this was all her life would ever be. Serving food to people who never learned her name, going home alone, waking up to do it all again. The loneliness was a physical ache. She'd watch families at the restaurant and feel that ache deepen into something that threatened to swallow her whole. But deep down, Grace wanted desperately to matter to someone, to be chosen, to be seen. She just never imagined that hope would arrive in the form of a 5-year-old girl with sad brown eyes and a father whose darkness matched the shadows Grace had been living in for years. ACT 2. The night everything changed, 3 to 10 o'clock. October 15th started like any other Saturday. Grace arrived at Bella Vista at 4 p.m., tying her apron, mentally preparing for another evening of forced smiles and forgotten faces. The dinner rush started around 6. Then they walked in. Grace felt the shift in the restaurant's energy before she saw them. Conversations dropped to whispers. Marco personally escorted the new arrivals to the corner table, the best table. The man was tall, dark-haired, and carried himself with authority that made people instinctively step back. He wore an expensive suit, and his eyes scanned the restaurant with the calculating gaze of someone who missed nothing. Lorenzo Castellano. Grace didn't know his name yet, but she recognized power when she saw it, and danger. But it was the little girl clutching his hand that made Grace's heart stop. She was tiny, maybe 5 years old, with long dark hair and eyes that held a sadness no child should carry. She wore a pretty blue dress and moved with the careful stillness of a child who'd learned the world was dangerous. Grace recognized that stillness. She'd worn it herself for years. "That's Lorenzo Castellano." Maria, the other waitress, whispered. "Mafia boss." Word is his wife died a few years back. Left him with a kid. Nobody crosses him, Grace. He's dangerous. Table 14 is yours, Marco said. And for God's sake, be professional. Grace's heart hammered as she approached their table. But then she did something she never did. Instead of focusing on the adult who would order and pay, she crouched down to the little girl's eye level. And what's your name, sweetheart? Grace asked gently. The little girl's eyes widened with surprise. Sophia, she whispered. Sophia, Grace repeated, smiling warmly. That's such a beautiful name. It means wisdom. Did you know that? Sophia shook her head, a tiny spark of interest lighting her sad eyes. It's true, and I bet you're very wise for such a little lady. Grace glanced at the coloring sheet nearby. Do you like to draw? Sophia nodded slowly. Me too. My nonna, that's Italian for grandmother, taught me to draw when I was about your age. She said art was how we could talk to people without using words. Grace's voice grew softer. Sometimes words are hard, aren't they? Something shifted in Sophia's expression. Recognition. This child knew exactly what Grace meant. You speak Italian? Sophia asked, her voice stronger now. Si, piccola, Grace replied in fluid Italian. My grandmother was from Sicily. For the first time, Grace saw Sophia smile. My mommy spoke Italian. Before she went to heaven. Grace's heart cracked open. She glanced at Lorenzo and saw pain flash across his face before he locked it behind a controlled mask. I bet your mommy is very proud of you, Grace said gently, squeezing Sophia's small fingers. And I bet she's watching over you right now, making sure you're safe and loved. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. Do you really think so? I know so, because that's what people who love us do. They never really leave. They stay in our hearts forever. Throughout dinner, Grace found herself drawn back to their table more than necessary. Each time, Sophia would smile a little brighter, talk a little more, share a little piece of herself. This one's you, Sophia said suddenly, pulling out a drawing from her purse. It showed a stick figure with long hair and a big smile. I drew you. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. You drew me? But sweetheart, you just met me. I know, Sophia said seriously. But I knew you were special. Your smile is different from other grown-ups. It reaches your eyes, even when you're sad inside. Like me. Can I keep this? Grace asked, her voice thick with emotion. Sophia nodded eagerly. It's for you, so you remember me. Oh, sweetheart, I could never forget you. It was true. In just 2 hours, this little girl had burrowed into Grace's heart in a way no one had since Nona died. As Lorenzo requested the check, Grace felt strange panic rising. They would leave, disappear back into their world, and Grace would return to her invisible existence. But then Sophia did something that stopped everyone in the restaurant. As Grace approached with the check, Sophia suddenly stood on her chair and launched herself at Grace with complete trust. Grace's arms came up automatically, catching the small body as Sophia wrapped her arms around Grace's neck. I want you to be my new mommy, Sophia whispered loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Grace froze, her eyes flying to Lorenzo. His face had gone completely still, unreadable except for the flash of raw emotion in his dark eyes. Sophia, Lorenzo said carefully. You can't just, but I want her, Daddy, Sophia insisted. She's nice. She speaks Italian like Mommy did. She understands about being sad, and she makes me feel warm inside. Grace felt her throat close up. She should step back, let this impossibly sweet child down gently. Instead, she heard herself say, I think you're pretty special too, Sophia. Then you'll come home with us? Sophia asked hopefully. Sophia, that's enough, Lorenzo said firmly, gently taking his daughter from Grace's arms. But his eyes met Grace's, and in them she saw an apology and a question. I work here most evenings, Grace heard herself say. If you want to come back, I'd love to see you again, Sophia. Tomorrow, Sophia asked immediately. Sophia, Lorenzo began. Please, Daddy. Okay, Lorenzo said suddenly. Tomorrow, same time. As they left, Sophia waved enthusiastically. Bye, Grace. Don't forget about me. Never, Grace whispered. Marco appeared at her elbow. What the hell was that? Grace touched her chest where Sophia had hugged her, feeling the space the little girl had briefly filled. I have no idea, Grace whispered, but I think my life just changed. ACT 3. The Impossible Connection. 10 to 1800 hours. They came back the next evening. And the evening after that. For 2 weeks, Lorenzo and Sophia became fixtures at Bella Vista. Same table, same time, always requesting Grace. Those dinners became the moments Grace lived for. Sophia would arrive with new drawings, stories about her day, questions about Grace's life. Grace would pull up a chair during slow moments, talking with Sophia in Italian and English, learning about this extraordinary child. I'm forgetting her voice, Sophia confessed one night, tears filling her eyes. I try so hard to remember Mommy, but it's getting harder. Grace's heart broke. She glanced at Lorenzo, who'd gone rigid with pain. Sophia, Grace said gently, taking the child's hands. Your mommy isn't just in your memories. She's in you, in your smile, in your kindness. You carry her with you everywhere. So even if you forget how her voice sounded, you'll never lose the most important parts of her. Those parts live in you forever. Sophia threw her arms around Grace's neck, sobbing quietly. Lorenzo stood abruptly. Sophia, we should go. No. Sophia pulled back, determined. I don't want to go. I want Grace to come home with us. I want her to tuck me in like Mommy did. Please, Daddy. I know you like her too. I see how you look at her. Lorenzo flushed, and Grace felt her own cheeks heat. Actually, Grace interrupted, surprising herself. My shift ends in an hour. If it would help, I could stop by, just for a little while, to help with bedtime. Lorenzo stared at her. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. An hour later, Grace found herself in Lorenzo's sleek black car, heading to a penthouse in Manhattan that made her pulse race with nerves. The penthouse was stunning, but felt frozen in time, like a museum dedicated to a woman who no longer existed. Isabella, Lorenzo's wife. Bedtime routine, Lorenzo said helplessly. Bath, pajamas, teeth story. Usually the nanny handles it, but she quit last week. They all quit eventually. I'm not difficult, Sophia protested. I just don't like strangers pretending to be my mommy when they don't really care. Grace knelt beside Sophia. How about I help you with your bath, and then your daddy can read the story. That way, we're all together. The bath was an adventure. After, Grace helped Sophia into pajamas and sat on the bed while Sophia picked a book. Will you read it? Sophia asked. In Italian, like Mommy used to? Grace read, her voice soft and melodic, translating into Italian with the same rhythm Nona had used. Sophia curled against her side, eyes growing heavy. Lorenzo sat in the chair watching them with an expression that made Grace's heart ache. Longing mixed with fear, hope mixed with grief. By the last page, Sophia was asleep. Grace carefully tucked her in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sogni d'oro, piccola. Sweet dreams. In the living room, Lorenzo offered Grace wine. They sat on the couch in charged silence. I don't know how to thank you, Lorenzo said finally. Sophia hasn't fallen asleep that peacefully since before Isabella died. She has nightmares most nights. But tonight, she's grieving, Grace said softly. Children need to know it's okay to be sad, but also okay to be happy. That loving someone new doesn't erase the person they lost. Is that what your Nona taught you? Grace nodded. When my parents died, I thought I had to stay sad forever. Nona told me that the people who love us want us to be happy. Isabella used to say something similar. Lorenzo's voice cracked. She was light and warmth and joy. And when she died, the light went out. I've been existing in darkness for 3 years. But Sophia needs you present, not just physically, but emotionally. I know. Lorenzo looked at her with raw vulnerability. And then you walked into our lives. A stranger who saw my daughter's pain and didn't run. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I just know what it's like to lose everything and need someone to remind you that you're still worthy of love. Lorenzo moved closer, his hand brushing a tear from her cheek. Grace, he whispered, I don't do this. I don't let people in. My world is too dangerous. But Sophia sees something in you that I'm starting to see too. And it terrifies me. Then we'll face it together, Grace said with sudden courage. I'm not afraid of your world. I'm only afraid of going back to being invisible. You matter, Lorenzo said fiercely. You've always mattered. The world just wasn't looking closely enough. ACT 4. When Darkness Strikes. 18:00-25:00. Grace started spending more time at the penthouse. Sophia began calling her schedule Grace Days versus not Grace Days. But fate had other plans. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Grace was walking home when rough hands grabbed her from behind. A cloth pressed over her mouth, and the world went dark. She woke in a windowless room, hands zip-tied, head pounding. She's awake, a voice said. 3 men emerged from shadows, rivals who'd noticed Lorenzo's interest in Grace and decided to exploit it. Grace Martinez, the leader said, the waitress who caught Lorenzo Castellano's attention. Do you have any idea how valuable you are? Grace's mind raced. She was leverage, a pawn. We've been watching, the man continued. Every dinner, every visit. You're a weakness, and weaknesses get exploited. What do you want? Your boyfriend has territory we want. Business we want. We're going to call him. Tell him to sign over his Eastside operation. And if he refuses? The man shrugged. Pretty waitresses disappear in New York all the time. The man made the call, explaining Lorenzo's options in cold terms. Let me talk to her. Lorenzo's voice came through, tight with violence. Lorenzo, Grace said. Don't. Are you hurt? Lorenzo interrupted. I swear to God if they hurt you, I'm okay. But don't give them what they want. Don't let them destroy everything because of me. I'm not don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't you dare say you're not worth it. You're worth everything, Grace. You're worth my entire empire. Grace felt tears slip down her cheeks. Sophia needs you, Grace whispered. Don't let them take that from her too. She needs her mother more. And whether you realize it yet, Grace, that's what you are to her. To both of us. So you hold on. I'm coming for you. And when I do, every single person who touched you will learn what happens when you threaten what's mine. Hours passed. Grace's captors grew restless as Lorenzo stalled. Then, suddenly, the lights went out. Gunfire erupted in the darkness. Grace dropped to the floor, making herself small, praying desperately. When the lights came back on, Lorenzo stood in the center of the room, blood splattered across his shirt, gun in hand, death in his eyes. His enemies lay scattered around him. Their eyes met. Lorenzo's face transformed from fury to relief. He was across the room in seconds, cutting her restraints, frantically checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? I'm okay, Grace whispered, throwing her arms around his neck. You came. You actually came. Always, Lorenzo said fiercely. I'll always come for you. Always protect what's mine. Mine. The word felt like coming home. Sophia, Grace said suddenly. Is she safe? But she's been crying for you, refusing to eat until I promised I'd bring you home. Home. Lorenzo cupped Grace's face in his bloodstained hands. I thought I lost you. For hours, I thought, and I realized I can't keep pretending. Can't keep holding back. Lorenzo, I love you, he said simply. I fell in love with you the moment you crouched down to talk to my daughter like she was a person. And tonight, thinking I might never see you again, I realized that living without you isn't living at all. I love you too, Grace whispered. Both of you. You've given me a family, a home. Lorenzo kissed her, and Grace tasted salt and hope. Marry me, Lorenzo said. Be Sophia's mother. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel invisible again. Yes, Grace whispered. Yes. ACT 5. Coming home. 25:00-30:00. When they walked into the penthouse, Sophia launched herself across the room with a cry that broke both their hearts. "You came back," Sophia sobbed. "I was so scared you left like Mommy did." "Never," Grace whispered fiercely. "I will never leave you. You're stuck with me forever now." "Forever." "Forever. Because your daddy asked me to marry him, and I said yes. Which means I get to be your mama. If you want me to be." Sophia's face lit with pure radiant happiness. "Really? You're going to be my mama?" "Your real mama is watching from heaven and smiling," Grace said gently. "She loved you so much. But I love you too, Sophia. And if you'll let me, I'd be honored to be your mama here on earth." Sophia threw her arms around Grace, whispering "my mama" over and over like a prayer. Lorenzo knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both his girls. For the first time in 3 years, his family felt complete. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Grace moved into the penthouse immediately. Sophia bloomed under constant love, sleeping through the night, smiling more, talking about the future. One afternoon, the three of them went into Isabella's garden for the first time in 3 years. "Mommy loved roses," Sophia explained. "She said every color meant something different." "Then we should plant all 3, Grace said softly. "Red for love, pink for gratitude, white for remembrance, to honor her memory and celebrate our new beginning." They spent hours in the garden together. Sophia shared stories about her mother, memories she'd been holding inside too long. "Do you think Mommy would like you?" Sophia asked suddenly. Grace considered carefully. "I hope so. I think your Mommy would want you to be happy and loved. And I love you more than anything, Sophia." "She's smiling right now," Sophia announced with certainty. "She's happy that Daddy isn't sad anymore." The wedding was small, intimate. Sophia was the flower girl, wearing a princess dress and grinning widely. When Grace walked down the aisle, she saw Lorenzo's breath catch, tears streaming down his face. "Do you, Lorenzo Castellano, take Grace Martinez to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Lorenzo said, "for all my days." "And do you, Grace Martinez, take Lorenzo Castellano to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Grace looked at the man before her, complicated and dangerous and tender and healing. She looked at Sophia, beaming up at her with pure joy. "I do," Grace said clearly, "for all my days." When Lorenzo kissed her, Sophia cheered loudly, and Grace tasted joy and hope. The invisible waitress was invisible no more. She was seen, loved, chosen. Home. Epilogue. The invisible no more. 30:00-32:00. 2 years later, Grace stood in their kitchen, a real house with a yard where Sophia could play, stirring sauce while Sophia did homework and Lorenzo chopped vegetables. "Mama, how do you say family in Italian?" Sophia asked. "Famiglia," Grace replied. "It means the people who love you no matter what." "Then we're the best famiglia ever," Sophia announced. She was 7 now, confident and bright, the sadness replaced with security. Grace's hand moved to her swelling belly, where new life grew. A little girl. Sophia was beyond excited to be a big sister. "How are you feeling?" Lorenzo asked softly. "Happy," Grace said simply. "Overwhelmingly, impossibly happy." It wasn't perfect. Lorenzo's world still held dangers. But there was also this, family dinners and homework help and lazy Sunday mornings. Sophia's laughter echoing through the house. Lorenzo's gentle hands on Grace's belly. The garden they tended together. Grace thought often about the girl she'd been. Invisible, lonely, surviving rather than living. About how one child's wisdom had seen past all the walls to recognize a kindred spirit. "What are you thinking about?" Lorenzo asked. "About how I spent so many years believing I was invisible, that I didn't matter. And now I know the truth. I was never invisible. I was just waiting until it was time for my story to begin. Until a little girl needed a mother and a broken man needed someone to help him believe in second chances." "You saved us," Lorenzo said. "Sophia and me both." "We saved each other," Grace corrected. "You gave me a family when I had none. A home when I was lost. A place to belong." That night, As Grace tucked Sophia in a bed, Sophia whispered something that made her heart overflow. "Mama, my first mommy came to me in a dream last night. She told me she was proud of me for choosing you, that you were exactly who she would have picked to love us." Grace felt tears slip down her cheeks. "That's beautiful, baby. She's happy we're happy," Sophia murmured. "She says love doesn't run out. There's always enough for everyone." Narrator's closing message. If Grace's story resonates with you, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. Even when the world makes you feel forgotten, even when you're surviving rather than living, you matter. You always have. Sometimes we just need one person to see us clearly. Sometimes we need one moment that changes everything. Sometimes we need to be brave enough to let ourselves be seen. Grace could have kept making herself small, kept believing she was nobody, but she chose differently. When a little girl reached for her, she reached back. When love knocked on her door disguised as danger, she opened it anyway. Your story is waiting for you too. Not a fairy tale, something better, something real. A story where you're the hero, where your courage to be seen changes everything. So be visible, be brave, be seen, because you're worth being found. And somewhere out there, your story is waiting to begin.